Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to check out the game number 11 from the World Chess Championship between Ding Liren versus Gukesh. Currently, the scores are tied 5 and 5. The 11th game is literally mind-blowing, and you will be simply shocked after watching this game. So I don't want to waste any further time, so let's jump in. Okay, so with the white pieces, Gukesh is playing, and with the black pieces, Ding Liren is playing. So Gukesh with the white pieces opened the game with 1 knight to f3. Ding replied with d5, and on the second move, Gukesh played the move c4 in the position. And after c4, Ding went for an aggressive approach and the best approach, which is to simply push the pawn to d4. You're trying to grab more space in the center, but a solid way to play is to simply play the move e6. And you see, it doesn't matter whatever white does. For example, if white plays d4, we have the QGD, the Queen's Indian Decline Gambit. Okay, and if white tries to play g3, we can say that we are kind of having the Catalan. And if white even goes for b3, we can simply continue with knight to f6, bishop goes out to e7, and the position is extremely fine for both the players. But instead, Ding is the world champion, current world champion, so he simply went for an aggressive approach, which is to play the move d4, grabbing more space in the center. And here, Gukesh instantly played the move b4 in this position, grabbing more space on the queen side, and also the idea is to develop the bishop to b2, attacking the pawn on d4. So in this position, it was all part of like this game already. Ding has played it in the past against Adiban, so he played the move c5. Like, the idea here is black is attacking the b4 pawn, and if white tries to capture the c5 pawn in this position, black is simply going to play the move e6, capture this pawn, and you will realize that like white is not really having anything. Like, black is simply having more space in the center, and black is simply having a happy position. So that's why at the place of capturing the pawn, Gukesh went for a more aggressive approach, which is to play the move e3 in this position. And now what is the idea? After e3, like if we try to simplify the position, for example, after d into e3, f into e3, we simply capture the pawn, and black even goes for capturing the pawn on b4. And here white is simply going to play the move d4. And believe me guys, this position is very interesting to play with the white pieces, or you can say with the black pieces. What is the idea? It doesn't matter whatever black does. Currently white is a pawn down, but white's idea is to develop the bishop to d3, simply short castle up, and white can even sacrifice another pawn via a3, takes bishop into a3, and you won't believe me, but this position is very aggressive for white. And once black castles on the short side, white is going to launch some heavy attack on the king side, because white is having this open f file, white is having this open diagonal. Once white is able to establish his pawn on e5, white is simply having a very strong position. So instead, that's why at the place of going for such a aggressive approach, which is quite risky to play with the black pieces as well, instead in this position, let me go back a bit. In this position, Ding took quite a while. Let me just quickly check it out how much time Ding took. Like, Ding literally took around 40 minutes, and he played the move knight to f6. Can you believe it? This is the main move, and the idea of knight to f6 here is, for example, if white tries to simply capture up the pawn in the position. In this position, black can simply continue the game with knight to c6. And now once again, black is going to push the pawn to e6 and capture the pawn on c5 with a perfect position. So that's why, going back in this position, after knight to f6, now there are some of the moves to be played in the position that have been played in the past, which is b5 and some more moves. But instead, Gukesh decided to surprise Ding Liren by playing the move a3, which actually has never been like this. There has been one game, but it is of very around 2000 elo players, so you can say it was a battle between weak players. But a3 playing in the world championship match is already a novelty in the position. What is the idea? Idea is maybe if black tries to take the pawn, white can simply capture the pawn, but there is no aggressive approach behind a3 pawn. So after a3, here Ding decides to develop his bishop on g4, and after bishop g4, we instantly have e into d4 by Gukesh, c into d4 by Ding Liren, and here once again you can say after c into d4, Gukesh is literally having 1 hour more compared to Dinglerin. So you can already realize how big Gukesh Domaraju is having the time advantage. And he once again played the move h3, telling Dinglerin that he's already in his preparation. And after h3, Ding decided to capture the knight in this position. But if, for example, after h3, if Dinglerin tries to go back with the bishop, the point here is white is going to play the move g4, kicking the bishop back, and you can already realize the bishop will land on g2, and the bishop is such a strong piece looking at this particular diagonal. So that's why at the place of going for such a big trouble, after the move h3 in the position, Ding decided to take the knight, which is the best move in this position. And now we have simply queen into f3 by Gukesh, and now we have a best move by Dinglerin, which is to play queen c7. Queen c7 defends the pawn on b7 from the queen on f3. So in this particular position, Gukesh played the move d3, which was actually a bad move. He played it like literally, you can say, in 6 minutes, but he should have taken time in this position. He's already having 1 hour more than Dinglerin, so he should have taken time. A strong move would have been to play c5. And you will see after c5, the bishop is coming out to b5. White can simply short castle in this position. White can push the pawn to d3, put the bishop to b2, put the knight to b3, and simply attack this pawn. And white is having absolutely no problem in this position, and white is having a perfect position. But instead, not going for this, but instead he went for a bad approach. Let me just go back a bit. In this position, Gukesh decided to push the pawn to d3, which was a bad move. And here, Dingler decided to play the move a5. He played the move b5 instantly, which was once again a bad move. He simply should have taken the pawn in this position. What happens? First of all, after takes, now you can develop your bishop to d2. You are having this open b file in this position. Once the rook lands on b1, you can see the rook is strong. But instead going for this, he pushed the pawn in this position, which was a bad idea to push the pawn. Because now what happens, the knight is going to sit on c5 like a beast. Exactly then, Dinglerin simply developed his knight to d7, just aiming for knight to c5. And now, Gukesh decided to take some time of his clock, and he later realized that he has simply blundered. He has simply went wrong somewhere. He simply misplayed something, and now he's completely having a worse position. How, you can say, because it looks like white's having the bishop pair. This should be fine for white. But here actually, the knight is sitting on c5. It will be a total beast. The pawn will reach on b3, a4. The knight can sit on b3. The knight is attacking the pawn on d3. Like, you see, this pawn is like a useless pawn. This pawn can never be pushed. Whereas, black can simply pull this knight back, put the pawns like this, simply short castle up in this position, and you will see black's having such a perfect position. Black just needs this e4 break, and black is simply extremely better in this position. But instead, this is the reason why now Gukesh decided to spend some literally heavy time on his clock, and you won't believe me, but he decided to play the move g3 in this position after taking more than 1 hour of his clock. He literally took 1 hour more. He literally took 1 hour to play the move g3. And now basically g3 simply tells that he's having a bad position. Dinglerin instantly played the move knight to c5, bishop to g2, and now we have the move knight to d7. And now many of the players must be thinking, why can't we play the move knight to b3, which attacks the rook and the bishop? The point here is white is going to take the pawn on b7, and if you try to capture the queen over here, for example, if you try to trade off the queens, and you try to attack the bishop, I can give a check, the knight goes back, and here after bishop b2, it doesn't matter. If you try to capture my exchange, you will see that I'm having the bishop pair, I'm having these two strong passed pawns, the bishop is attacking this pawn, and white is, to be true, pretty happy with this play. So that's why the place of going for such a crazy stuff, Ding decided to play it safe. Let me just put back the position. Yeah, this was the position, and here he decided to play the move knight to d7, knight f to d7. And now we have the move short castle by Gukesh. And now we have the move knight to e5, which attacks the queen and which also attacks the pawn on d3. So here we have the move queen to f4. And here actually at the place of queen f4, one more interesting move would have been to play queen to d5. And after queen d5, knight takes the pawn on d3, queen takes the pawn on d4. We would have had rook d8. This is just an analysis. Queen c3, knight takes on c1, rook takes on c1. And after e6, black is pretty happy with this position. Black can never lose this position. Black is also having some bishop d6 ideas, because you cannot capture the pawn on g7, because after bishop e5, I'm also attacking your queen and I'm also attacking your rook. So that's why black is having a fabulous position. So instead, that's why at the place of going for such stuff, instead Gukesh decided to play something else. In this position after knight to e5, he decided to play the move queen to f4. And now in this position, Ding first put the rook to d8 to defend this pawn. And now we have the move rook to d1 by Gukesh, protecting the pawn. Basically, you cannot take the pawn with the knight, because after rook takes, knight takes, you are losing the queen. So that's why we have the move first g6, which was simply a bad move. A good move would have been to play e6, to develop the bishop to d6, or you can simply play queen da6 or queen b8. The idea is to simply protect the queen, and now on the next move you can simply capture the pawn. But instead g6, and now we have the move a4 by Gukesh, a very good move. g6 was simply a mistake, because now what happens, h5 was played to develop the bishop to h6. We have b6, a very strong solution. You cannot capture the pawn because the knight is hanging. Yeah, and that's the whole idea. The queen moved to d6. Bishop to a3, bishop to h6, and now we have simply bishop into c5. And now you have to take the bishop off this board. And now we have simply queen to e4. Attacking the pawn on b7, excellent move by Gukesh. Knight to c6, and now we have the move knight to a3. And now you will see that white has started to simplify the position, and now consolidate the position. The knight is jumping on b5, the knight is jumping on c7 with a fabulous position. And if you try to capture this pawn over here on b6, the rook is going to come on b5, enter on the 5th rank, and it could be a big trouble for black. So instead, black played the move rook d7, which was a bad move. He should have first played the move short castle, which would have been much better. But after rook g7 in this position, trying to defend the pawn maybe, Gukesh decided to play the move knight to c2. Indian says that queen e2 would have been much stronger, maybe just trying to open up this diagonal for the bishop, trying to get the rook in, and somehow, yeah, just trying to put the rook on b5, and the game continues. But instead we have knight to c2, and now we have queen into b6 by Ding. And now rook to b1, queen goes to c7, and now we have the move rook to b5. The rook entered on the 5th rank. And now you will realize that white is having such an energetic play. The rook is on the 5th rank. Black king has not yet castled up. The bishop and the queen is lining up on the b pawn. Another rook is also coming on b1. Such a strong position white is having. We have short castle by black, and now we have knight to a1. Maybe not the best. Maybe he should have played something else. Maybe just trying to get this rook to b1. But knight to a1, maybe the idea was to put the knight to c5. Maybe just putting pressure over here. And after knight to a1, we have rook to b8 by Ding, just protecting the pawn. Knight to b3, as I said. And now we have the move e6, which was a big blunder. In this position, Ding should have played the move rook to d6. The point here is, after knight c5, now the rook is not hanging, because the rook is on d7, and now black can simply play bishop g7 with a fine position, just trying to maneuver up his position pieces on a good square. But after e6, the problem over here is, now the knight jumps on c5, attacks the rook. Now the rook is going to move up, and now we have the move rook to b1 by Gukesh, which was not the best. He should have played the move knight into b7, which was simply a good move. Because if you try to capture the rook over here, I can simply capture the knight, because my queen and the bishop is attacking the knight. So this would have been a very powerful move in the position, but instead, going for this, Gukesh played the move rook to b1, just trying to add another attacker. And here's queen to c8, and you won't believe queen c8 was the last blunder of the match. You can try to pause the video and try to find the winning move for white. Okay, so like Gukesh instantly took the knight on c6, and after knight c6, Ding resigned. That's it. After queen c6, why he resigned? Because, like, if for example, if you take with the queen, I can take the queen with the bishop, you take, and I can take the rook on b8. And just try to count the material, white is simply a rook up. That's it. Game is over. So that's why after queen into c6, Ding simply blended a rook, and he simply lost the game. So you see how interesting this game was. And now Gukesh is simply leading the tournament, and only 3 games are left for Ding Liren to strike back, or else Gukesh is going to become the world champion. So if you love the analysis, make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to click the notification bell for such new updates. I'm going to come up with these more interesting videos like this, and make sure to tell me in the comment box below, do you think that Ding is going to make a comeback or not? I'm going to see you soon, so till then, bye bye.